I never believed in cursed objects. I believed in decay, in history, in the quiet stories told through cracks and rust. But not curses. Not until the mirror. The road to the monastery was broken in more ways than one. Gravel clicked beneath the tires of the borrowed jeep as I wound through the damp, skeletal forest that clawed at both sides of the mountain path. Romania's late October fog hung low, thick and sour, like the breath of something buried. I should have turned back. The air told me so. But obsession speaks louder than warnings. The villagers in Poiana didn't look me in the eye when I mentioned the monastery. An old man crossed himself 3 times and muttered something about Ochii Sealer Pirditi, the eyes of the lost. I didn't ask again. I just drove. It took most of the day to reach the ruins. The monastery sat like a crumbling jawbone at the top of a hill, its once sacred stones devoured by moss and ash. Fire had blackened the upper floors long ago, but the bones of the building remained, stubborn and waiting. I stepped through the warped gates with a crowbar in one hand and my satchel in the other. The scent of charred wood still lingered, despite the decades. Strange. Fire shouldn't last in the wind and rain like that. Inside, the silence pressed hard. No birds. No insects. Just the sound of my own breath and the occasional whisper of wind dragging across the broken windows like a warning too old to matter. I found it by accident. Behind the remains of what used to be the altar was a wall partially caved in, stone blocks scattered like the teeth of a dying god. I crouched to examine the space, brushing away centuries of dust and ivy. Something shimmered back. The mirror. It stood perfectly upright in the hollow of the wall, untouched. Not a scratch. Not a fingerprint. Its surface was darker than it should have been, not reflecting light so much as swallowing it. The frame was carved in symbols I didn't recognize, etched too finely to be random, but too old for me to make sense of. As I reached out, the cold bit my fingertips before I even touched the glass. It wasn't just cold. It was still, like it had never known warmth. I whispered, "How did you survive?" The mirror answered with silence. But for a moment, just the briefest flicker, I thought I saw something in the glass. Not my face. Someone else's. A face twisted in fear, lips frozen in a silent scream, eyes hollow and reaching. Then it was gone. My breath caught. The glass showed only me again, pale and blinking. I should have left it there. But I didn't. I wrapped it in cloth, packed it into the jeep, and told myself I imagined it, that it was just the lighting or fatigue or the fever of curiosity that had driven me here in the first place. That's what I told myself all the way back down the hill. That night, I dreamt of fire, and a man in robes whispering in a language my ears remembered, but my mind had never known. I didn't know his name then, but I would come to know it well. Duko. The road back to the city was long and quiet, but my mind wasn't. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, not at the road, but at the bundle wrapped in thick burlap cloth sitting on my back seat. Even covered, it made the car feel heavier. The mirror had no weight I could measure, but it pressed against something inside me, like it was leaning on my thoughts. My name is Barella. I'm 36, and I've spent the last 10 years collecting rare artifacts for private collectors, museums, and on occasion myself. Most antiques whisper stories. This one screamed, even in silence. When I got home, the sky was bruised with rain. I parked in the underground garage of my apartment complex and paused with my hand on the mirror's cloth. The air around it was cold. I could feel it seeping into my palm through the layers of fabric. Inside my apartment, I cleared space on the far wall of my study. It was my quiet place, bookshelves lined with dusty hard covers, a few strange items I'd kept over the years, a fossilized crow skull, a cracked porcelain mask, a rusted key with no known lock. The mirror deserved the best spot. I set it upright against the wall, then slowly unwrapped it. No dust. No smudges. Its wooden frame was carved with symbols I didn't recognize, shapes that looked like branches, or maybe roots, twisting and tangling inwards. The glass didn't just reflect, it absorbed. The light around it dimmed slightly, as though the mirror didn't like being looked at. My reflection stared back, me unchanged. My pale skin, my tired eyes, the silver thread beginning to streak through my black hair. But my reflection looked sadder than I felt. I blinked. So did it. I turned on a desk lamp and picked up my camera. I started documenting, standard process. Photos from every angle. Notes about its dimensions, condition, origin. It would go into the archive before I decided what to do with it. Then the phone rang. It was Henry, a fellow collector. Loud, excitable, and obsessed with haunted junk, as he called it. You got anything creepy lately? He asked, half joking. I paused, eyes still on the mirror. Maybe, I said. What, like eBay haunted, or actual spooky? I smiled faintly. I'll let you know tomorrow. I just need sleep. After we hung up, I returned to the study. The mirror was still there, still perfect, still watching. I stood in front of it again. My reflection met me, still and familiar. But something was off. There was a flicker, just for a second, in the glass. I stepped closer. My reflection was gone. Instead, the glass showed a dark hallway lined with candlelight. The flames danced, though I could not feel their warmth. The air grew colder. Then I saw her. A face emerged from the shadow. My sister. Her eyes were wide, mouth open in a silent scream. She was pale, bruised, and reaching out as if from behind thick glass. Her hand pressed against the inside of the mirror, where mine should have been. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the chair behind me. No, I whispered. You're dead. The hallway vanished. The mirror showed only me now, me panting, face white, hands shaking. My sister had died 3 years ago. They'd said it was suicide. She'd left no note. Only a broken hand mirror and a sketch of strange symbols drawn in her journal. I hadn't thought about that sketch in years. But now I knew. I had seen those symbols today. On the frame of the monastery mirror. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Not how she was in life, bright, clever, always laughing at things that weren't funny. No, I saw her as she had appeared in the mirror. Trapped. And I began to wonder if maybe she still was. The morning light pushed through my curtains like lazy fingers, stretching across the wooden floor of my apartment. For a moment, I almost believed the night before had been a trick of the mind. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe I had been too tired. Maybe grief had finally cracked something inside me. I walked past the mirror without looking. Not because I was afraid. No, because I didn't want to give it power. That's what my mother used to say about fear. Don't feed what watches, she'd whisper during thunderstorms. Back then, I thought she meant shadows in closets. Now I wasn't so sure. Later that day, Anna came over. She was my neighbor, a cheerful woman with the kind of smile that felt warm even when she was silent. She brought coffee and 2 croissants, one already missing a bite. What's with the antique you dragged in? She asked, setting the bag on my kitchen counter. It's from Romania. A monastery, I said carefully, as if the words were fragile. Found it sealed behind a stone wall. She laughed. You and your cursed treasures. One day you're going to bring something home that actually eats people. I smiled, but didn't join her laughter. Come look, I said. We walked into the study. The mirror stood against the far wall, tall and still too clean, as if no dust dared settle on it. Its frame, carved with vines and strange faces, shimmered faintly in the room's dim light. Anna tilted her head. It's beautiful. Old. But something about it. I don't know. It makes the room colder. I hadn't told her about my sister. About the face. About the scream I heard, but never truly heard. It's just your imagination, I said, though the lie tasted like rust on my tongue. She stepped closer, squinting. Then she froze. Anna. She didn't blink. Didn't breathe. I took a step forward. Her eyes were wide now, fixed on the glass. I think, she whispered. Then she let out a noise I had never heard from her before. Not fear. Not pain. Something deeper. Like her soul recognized what her body didn't. And then she screamed. It wasn't a scream of surprise. It was a scream of knowing. I rushed forward, grabbing her by the shoulders, pulling her back. Her eyes were wet with tears. Her lips trembled. I saw myself, she whispered. I waited. But it wasn't me. What do you mean? She was inside. Inside the glass. And she looked burned. And she smiled. I looked into the mirror then, too fast, too hard. My own face stared back. Normal. Tired. But no flames. No smiles. Anna backed away, nearly tripping over the edge of the rug. I'm sorry, she said. I have to go. She didn't take the coffee. Or the croissants. The door slammed behind her like a warning. I turned slowly to the mirror. Who are you? I asked. The glass didn't answer. But my reflection blinked. And I hadn't. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in front of the mirror with the lights off. Watching. Waiting. Somewhere after midnight, the room grew heavy. The air thickened, and my ears popped as if the pressure around me changed. And then the whisper came. From behind the glass. Not yet, Barella. But soon. I didn't scream. Not this time. I simply whispered back. Then I'll be waiting. I couldn't sleep. Not after what I saw. My sister's face, pale, trembling, eyes wide with terror, had stared back at me from the antique mirror. But not like a reflection. It was more like she was trapped behind the glass, calling to me without moving her lips. I hadn't seen her in 3 years. Not since her funeral. I told myself it was exhaustion. A trick of the eyes. The stress of traveling and working too much. But something about the mirror was wrong, and I could feel it in my chest, like a thread pulling tighter with each hour I stayed near it. So I did what I always do when I'm afraid. I dug into the past. I opened my laptop, cleared my desk, and began going through the monastery's history. The building had belonged to the Order of St. Dismas, a small group of monks who believed in guarding relics too dangerous to destroy. They were secretive. Most records were lost in a fire in 1913. But I found a single archived article, scanned and buried deep in a forgotten Romanian digital library. Priest disappears in monastery fire, locals blame cursed object. It mentioned a man, Father Duco Acheron. That was the first time I read his name, but it felt like I'd heard it before. Maybe whispered. Maybe in a dream. The article was brief, almost careless. It called him eccentric, obsessed with shadows and mirrors, and noted that he vanished the night the monastery burned to the ground. Some said he died in the fire. Others said he had gone mad and fled. A few, mostly villagers, believed he'd tried to trap something evil inside the monastery, and failed. The mirror. It had to be the mirror. I leaned back in my chair, my room silent except for the soft hum of the heater and the ticking of the old wall clock. The mirror sat in the corner. I had covered it with a blanket earlier, but now it seemed closer. Like it had moved, though I knew it couldn't have. I tried to ignore it and went back to my screen. After an hour of digging, I found something stranger. A banned church document listed in a collection of forbidden texts, most likely smuggled out of the Vatican's archives. The name on the title page, Duco Acheron. The document was called The Eye That Sees All. There were no images, just a scanned copy of an old handwritten sermon. I clicked to open it. It began like a normal religious speech, but quickly turned dark. If the soul is a room, then the mirror is the door. And through that door they come. Not demons, but watchers. Not devils, but echoes. They wear our faces, speak in our voices, and crave our pain. My heart started to race. The mirror is not glass. It is hunger. Every gaze feeds it. Every reflection leaves a scar. It does not show what is. It shows what suffers. It shows what waits. I stopped reading. The room had gone cold. My breath came out in soft clouds, like I had stepped into a freezer. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then steadied. I turned to look at the mirror, the blanket still draped over it. But something moved behind the fabric. A slow press against it from the inside, like fingers dragging down the cloth from behind. I stood up, heart pounding, not sure whether to run or rip the blanket off. Then I heard it. A voice. Whispered. A man's voice, low and calm, right behind me. I begged them to burn it. I spun around. No one. My apartment was empty. I pulled the blanket off the mirror, my hand shaking. Nothing. Just my reflection, pale and sweating. But for the briefest moment, I saw something behind me in the glass. A tall figure in priest robes. Head bowed. Hands clasped. And though his lips didn't move, I heard his words clear as thunder inside my skull. The more you look, the wider it opens. The room began to spin. I backed away from the mirror, knocked over my chair, and crawled into the corner. My chest felt tight, like my lungs couldn't fill with enough air. The sermon's words echoed in my head. They wear our faces, they crave our pain. I knew then this mirror wasn't cursed because of what it reflected. It was cursed because of what it invited. And Father Duco, wherever he was now, had tried to warn me. But I was already too late. The mirror was awake. I stood in the doorway of my study, staring at the mirror as if it were an animal that might pounce. It hadn't stopped showing me faces. It had only grown worse. I had tried everything, draping it with cloth, moving it into the closet, even placing it face down on the floor. But every time I returned, it was upright, uncovered, waiting for me. I'd wake to see it propped back on its stand, no matter how far I'd moved it. Once, I even found it beside my bed. That was the night I heard my sister whisper my name. Barella. Her voice was soft, broken, but it came not from the mirror, it came from behind it. I snapped then. The fear that had been building like a fog in my chest finally burned into something else. Something sharper. Rage. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the iron candle holder from the desk, walked straight toward the mirror, and without thinking, I slammed the metal against the glass. Once. Twice. 3 times. The mirror didn't just crack, it screamed. Not with my sister's voice, not with anything human. It sounded like something ancient being torn apart. A howl of agony and fury and hunger all twisted together. I dropped the candle holder and stumbled back, heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted out. Shards of glass lay scattered on the wooden floor. For a moment, I believed it was over. Silence hung in the air, heavy and still. I could hear my own breathing, sharp and uneven. But then, I saw them. The pieces, each shard, held something inside. Faces. Not reflections. They weren't looking at me. They were looking through me. Hundreds of them. Eyes wide. Some crying. Some grinning with mouths stretched far too wide. Some simply watching, motionless, waiting. And right there, in the largest piece of glass near my foot, was my sister. Her eyes were bloodshot, her skin pale, and her lips trembled. "Why did you come back?" she whispered. I fell to my knees. "Sarah?" My voice cracked. She nodded slowly. "You weren't supposed to find it. I thought you were gone. I thought the mirror." "No," she interrupted, her voice becoming clearer through the glass. "It's not the mirror. It's what watches through it." My blood turned to ice. "What is it?" I asked. My voice shook. She didn't answer. Behind her face, something stirred. A black shadow moved past like smoke in water, slow and thick. Eyes opened within the darkness, dozens, maybe hundreds. I couldn't breathe. "Sarah, what do I do? Tell me how to stop this." She looked so sad then. "You can't stop it, Barella. But you can trap it, again." And just like that, her image dissolved. The shard was empty. Just cracked glass on the floor. I sat there for a long time, knees on the cold boards, surrounded by the broken mirror and the faint echo of whispers that didn't belong in this world. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I think part of me knew that breaking the mirror hadn't destroyed anything. It had released it, and now I could feel something had shifted in the room. In the walls. In the very air. Something ancient was awake, and it was no longer hiding behind the glass. It was looking for a new way in, and it had already found me. The train hissed to a stop in the middle of a gray, sleeping town nestled in the arms of the Carpathian Mountains. I stepped off, the cold air biting through my coat like needles. My boots crunched against frostbitten gravel as I moved toward the same crumbling path I had walked weeks ago, the path that had first brought me to the monastery. But this time, I wasn't here for antiques. I was here for the truth. The sky above was the color of ash. Clouds hung heavy and low, almost as if they were watching. The villagers didn't meet my gaze as I passed. They had seen the mirror in my arms last time. Now I carried only a flashlight, a leather satchel, and the questions that wouldn't stop gnawing inside me. The monastery loomed at the edge of the cliff, black and broken. The cross on the steeple had long since fallen. The wind howled through the ruins like it remembered every scream. My feet hesitated at the entrance. Something inside me whispered to turn back. But I had come too far. I stepped over the stone threshold. The smell was worse this time, damp stone, scorched wood, and something else. Something rotten, like burned hair and old blood. My flashlight flickered as I made my way through the nave, its beam tracing the fallen beams and cracked icons. Each step echoed. I wasn't alone. Deeper inside, the floor had partially caved in. It looked like a sinkhole had opened and swallowed a chunk of the chapel. This wasn't here before. Kneeling, I saw a staircase, half buried under rubble. Narrow, old, a passage into the earth. The monks had hidden something here. No, sealed it. I descended slowly, my fingers grazing the rough stone walls. Dust danced in the beam of my light. The silence grew heavier with each step, like a pressure pressing against my ears. The air turned colder. The stairs ended in a small stone chamber. The walls were covered in carvings, Latin phrases etched with shaking hands. I didn't need to understand the language to feel the desperation behind them. Words scratched over words, layers of warnings. Names, prayers, blood smears. And in the center of the room, there was a circle drawn on the floor in faded black ash. Inside it, nothing grew. Not mold. Not dust. Just stillness. I stepped closer. That's when I saw the altar. Broken in two, but beneath it books. Ancient. Molded. And bones. I didn't scream. I wanted to. But the cold in that place didn't let sound escape so easily. One of the books still had a legible page. It was a ritual, a sealing rite. I couldn't read all of it, but I understood enough. The mirror was never meant to be found. It wasn't made by monks. It was trapped by them. Something inside the mirror, no. Something behind it. I turned to leave, to climb back out, but the stone behind me shifted. A soft sound like a breath. I wondered when you'd return. I froze. The voice wasn't human. It was too smooth, too steady, like it had waited centuries to speak again. I turned, and there he was. Duco. He stood at the far end of the room, robes black as ink, hands folded in front of him. His face was calm, ageless. He didn't blink. "You're not supposed to be here," I said, though my voice trembled. He smiled faintly, stepping forward. The air around him shimmered slightly, like heat over fire. "Neither are they," he said, motioning toward the mirror that now stood behind him, its surface glowing faintly in the dark, even though I had left it behind in my apartment. I stepped back, heart pounding. "How is it here?" "It never left," he said simply. "You brought your eyes to it. That's enough." "What are you?" I asked. My voice cracked. "I was Duco," he said. "Once. A man. A priest. A fool." His hands opened slightly. "I tried to destroy the mirror. I failed. It took me instead. Now I am its voice. Its vessel." I shook my head. "Why me?" "Because you look too long. And because you carry her blood." My knees almost buckled. "My sister." Duco's face twisted into something almost sad. "She tried to warn you. She tried to resist. But it always finds the curious. The broken." "I'm not broken," I whispered. A long silence. He stepped closer. "Not yet." The mirror behind him pulsed like a heartbeat. I could see faces writhing in the glass, eyes wide, mouths open in silent agony. I saw my sister again. Her eyes locked on mine. Her lips moved. A single word. "Run." But I didn't. I stepped into the circle of ash, the ceiling ground. My flashlight flickered once, then died. Darkness swallowed everything but the mirror. And the truth. I had come into the fire. And now it had begun to burn. I stepped into the cold silence of the hidden sanctum beneath the ruined chapel, my heart pounding like a hammer in my chest. The air was thick with dust and something else, something older, darker, and heavy with sorrow. The walls around me were carved with strange symbols, Latin words curling like spiderwebs, telling a story I could almost understand but dared not fully grasp. A voice echoed in the shadows, low and calm, like a whisper threading through the cracks of stone. "You've come," it said. I froze. My breath caught. From the darkness emerged a figure, tall and thin, cloaked in the shadows of a long-forgotten prayer. His face was pale, almost ghostly, framed by a thinning crown of dark hair streaked with gray. His eyes burned with an unholy fire that made my skin crawl. "Duco," I breathed, the name tasting bitter on my tongue. He stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate. "I am what remains, what the church feared and buried alive." His voice was steady, but beneath it, I heard the pain of centuries. "I was once a priest, a guardian of faith. But this mirror," he gestured behind him, "is my prison and my curse. I did not create it. I tried to destroy it, but it consumed me." I swallowed hard, the room suddenly feeling smaller, the shadows pressing in closer. "What are you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I am the gateway," he said. "The door the mirror opens to the damned. My body is no longer mine. It is a vessel, a key to something far worse than you imagine." My mind raced. The faces I had seen trapped in the mirror. The screams I'd heard at night. The terror in my sister's eyes. All connected to this man before me, or rather, this thing. "Why show yourself to me?" I demanded, though every instinct screamed at me to run. "Because you are tied to it, as she was before you." He spoke of my sister, the woman I loved and lost. "You both share a bloodline stained by the mirror's curse. It calls to you, and now you must choose." "Choose what?" I whispered, dread curling in my gut. "To accept it, to become its new guardian, to take my place and keep the darkness sealed, or to walk away and let the mirror claim others, innocents, until it devours them all." I shook my head, disbelief flooding me. "There has to be another way." He smiled, bitter and hollow. "There isn't. The monks tried to trap it with holy rites, but it found me instead. I am the price." I felt a cold hand grip my soul. The weight of his words crushed me. To sacrifice myself? To become the doorway to endless torment? I thought of my sister's desperate warnings, her fading voice in the mirror. I thought of the faces, so many, trapped and screaming. And then I saw it clearly. This was no longer just about survival. It was about stopping the spread of evil, even if it meant losing myself. Duco's eyes locked onto mine, searching, pleading. "You can end this, or doom us all." I stepped closer to the altar, the carved stones humming beneath my fingers, the sealing ritual, the blood, the prayers, everything the monks left behind as a last hope. This was my choice, the mirror's gatekeeper or the doom of the damned. I took a deep breath and whispered a prayer that I hoped would be heard. I couldn't sleep that night. The wind outside howled like a thing alive, scraping against the window panes. I sat cross-legged on the floor of the chapel's sanctum, surrounded by faded symbols, my hands shaking around a leather-bound journal I had just uncovered. The pages were brittle, stained, and smelled of smoke and old tears. It was my sister's handwriting. I hadn't seen it in years, not since she died. They said it was suicide. They said she lost her mind. But as I turned the first page, I realized they were wrong. All of them. She wasn't insane. She had seen it too. March 7th. The mirror showed me something tonight. Not my face. Not anything of this world. Just the place. Black sky. No stars. Screams that didn't come from mouths. It watched me back. I kept reading. She had found it before I did. Somehow. In a dusty shop in Marrakesh. No one knew where it came from. She bought it because she thought it was beautiful. Just like me. Drawn to darkness dressed as treasure. March 11th. I covered it, then locked it away. But it doesn't matter. Even when I close my eyes, I still see it. The reflections are getting stronger. I don't know whose faces they are. But they're not dead. Not fully. March 14th. Barella, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. My breath hitched. I whispered her name like a prayer. Sophia. I flipped to the last page. The ink was smudged, rushed, but I could still make it out. It's not the mirror itself. It's what lives through it. Something ancient. Patient. It doesn't want to kill you. That would be too easy. It wants you to look. To keep looking. The longer you do, the more it learns you. The more it pulls. The final line stopped my heart cold. Don't let it know your name. I sat frozen, the candle beside me flickering, casting warped shadows on the stone walls. I thought back to all the times I had spoken to the mirror. My name. My memories. My pain. I had poured myself into it, thinking I was just losing my mind. But I wasn't alone in that madness. Sophia had walked this path before me, step by step, and she had tried to leave behind a warning, hidden in ink, buried in silence. I lifted my eyes slowly, dread rising in my throat like bile. The mirror stood where I had left it against the far wall, cracked but very much whole. I hadn't brought it here. It had followed me. A shape moved inside it. Not a reflection. A presence. Sophia's face appeared again. Not screaming this time. Just staring. Sad. Hollow. And then, behind her, a shadow taller than any human. Thin as bone. Its head tilted as though listening. Its mouth moved, but no sound came. Only a low vibration that rattled through the stone beneath me. I whispered, barely able to speak. Sophia. I'm sorry. Her lips moved too. Run. But I didn't run. I couldn't. The cold was in my bones now. The truth heavy in my hands. My sister had fought it until the end. She hadn't been weak. She had been brave enough to write it down. Brave enough to try and break the cycle. Now it was my turn. Whatever this thing was, this demon in the glass, it had taken her, and it wanted more. It fed on pain, fear, obsession. It lured the curious, the broken. And once it knew your name, it never let go. I closed the journal. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something other than fear. I felt purpose. It took my sister. It wouldn't take me. Not without a fight. The air inside the sanctum was thick, as if the stones themselves were holding their breath. I stood in the center of the ancient chamber beneath the monastery, surrounded by faded Latin carvings and the scent of damp earth and burnt incense. The mirror stood upright on its own, unshattered, though I had broken it days ago. It had put itself back together. It was waiting for me. The room flickered with candlelight. I had lit them using the monk's ritual instructions I found carved into the walls. I couldn't read all of it, but some words were clear. Anima, hostia obsidio. Soul. Sacrifice. Binding. My hands trembled as I opened the leather-bound book I'd taken from the sealed wall in the chapel, the monk's last journal. His final words were scrawled with such panic the ink had bled across the pages. They told me not to write this. They said the mirror remembers. It remembers who watches. It remembers who walks away. And it always comes back. The mirror began to hum softly. A sound like wind in a hollow throat. Then I heard his voice. You came back, Duco said, stepping from the shadows behind the mirror. His body was taller than I remembered, stretched unnaturally. His skin looked pale and too smooth, like wax melting from a candle. His eyes held no light, only reflection. My reflection. Yes, I said. My voice came out thin. And I'm not leaving until this ends. You still believe you're stronger than it? He asked. It has shown you things no soul should see. And still you stand. He took a step closer, and I felt the floor pulse beneath me. The mirror shimmered like water touched by a breath. This mirror, he whispered, was not made by monks. It was not forged by hands. It was born the moment the first soul refused to repent. The moment damnation became a choice. It is a gate, and you are holding the key. I clenched the small dagger in my fist. It had been on the altar, hidden beneath dried flowers and ash. A rusted blade, inscribed with the seal of the monastery. I didn't know if it would work, but I had to believe. I stepped forward. I know what this place is now, I said. I know what you are. The mirror doesn't show the damned. It collects them, and it needs someone to guard the door. He didn't speak, but I saw something flicker in his face. Maybe fear. Maybe sorrow. I drew the blade across my palm. The pain was sharp and instant. Blood welled up and dripped onto the cold floor. The carvings glowed faintly in response. The mirror let out a low moan. I offer myself, I whispered, as keeper of the gate. Duco surged forward, screaming. You don't know what you're doing. But I was already kneeling in the center of the symbol. My blood ran through the grooves in the floor, activating something older than language. The candles flared, and the mirror rippled like glass touched by a storm. Faces began to appear, hundreds of them, pushing against the surface from within. My sister's face was among them, her eyes wide and full of something I hadn't seen before, peace. The ground shook. Duco's body twisted and warped. His voice grew inhuman. You fool! You'll be trapped for eternity. I looked up at him. Maybe. But I won't let you take anyone else. The final words from the monk's ritual rang in my mind. I spoke them aloud, unsure of their exact meaning, but feeling their weight in my bones. Sanguine clausura. Anima legata. Portamone. Ego custos sum. The moment I finished, the mirror exploded in light. I wasn't standing anymore. I was floating. Or falling. It was hard to tell. I could feel the souls. All of them. Pressing, whispering, reaching. But they couldn't touch me. Not yet. Then I saw Duco being pulled back into the glass. His face contorted in silent rage as the mirror sealed once again. The surface smoothed out. Cold. Quiet. I opened my eyes. But I wasn't in the chamber anymore. I was inside the mirror. Not dead. Not alive. Just watching. Waiting. And somewhere far away, I knew the mirror would find a new home. A new place to rest. Until someone else looked too long and saw me staring back. They say some things are cursed, but I've learned curses don't just sit in objects. They live. They wait. It's been years since the monastery. Years since I spoke my final words inside that stone crypt, sealing Duco away and taking his place as the mirror's guardian. But I no longer feel the days pass. I no longer sleep or breathe or blink. I am in the mirror now. I don't know how long I've been trapped here, staring out through cold black glass. Time doesn't move inside this world, it folds. A second feels like a century. My hands don't work. My voice doesn't carry. But my eyes still see. And I can see him now. The man in the gray coat. He unpacks me like any other antique, sets me gently on the wall of a quiet little Paris shop filled with dust and silence. He doesn't know where I came from. Doesn't know about the monastery, or the fire, or the blood on the stones beneath my prison. He just sees an old mirror. No dust. No scratches. A perfect surface like still water. He stands in front of me now. Tall, maybe in his 40s. He looks curious, but relaxed. Humming as he cleans the shop floor. The bell above the door hasn't rung in hours. He wipes my frame with a cloth. Smiles at his reflection. But then, he freezes. Because he realizes there isn't one. He leans closer, confused. I can see the crease in his brow. He tilts his head, expecting to see his own, but instead he sees me. My face. My eyes. Trapped behind the glass. Watching. Pleading. His lips part slightly, stunned. I press my palm to the inside of the mirror. I want to scream. To warn him. But no sound escapes. He blinks. Steps back. His smile fades. And then, I hear it again. That voice. Low, deep, and so familiar it curdles what's left of my soul. Another curious one, Duco whispers, somewhere behind the veil of glass. They never learn. I want to shout. To shake the mirror and yell, run. Don't let it touch you. Don't let it see your soul. But the man reaches out. His fingertips graze the mirror's surface. The light flickers in the room, and I see it. His reflection finally appears. But not alive. Not breathing. Just burning. Mouth open. Screaming silently. Another face added to the collection. I feel the weight grow heavier. I don't know how many of us are in here now. 20? 100? More? All I know is that I'm still watching. Still trapped. Still waiting. And the mirror. It's still for sale.